right, listen up. Welcome to another video today, 30-30 Challenge. I got my buddy Matthew Pilkington in here.
Greetings.
Hey, he's been here. He's in interviews all week related to missions. And so he was outside of my door reading things on my door. I post things. And it's always the same. They never change. But yet there he was drinking a water bottle. So I told him to come in here. And I told him, you're going to do the 30-30 challenge with us today. We're going to talk through. Now, here's what I found out. This is the 30-30 challenge for adults. I found out my man Matthew has been doing this before it was ever cool. So he's had it on his phone. Now,
occasionally, not every day. Occasionally,
he was doing the 30-30 challenge before anybody had ever heard of it. So remember, I pulled this one out. This is the guide. So if you want to continue on and go through, which is that little black one, the new City Catechism, and I don't know where I put it. It's probably in my backpack. That's great. But I kind of make these videos each week based on some of that material. So today's question comes. And it's New City Catechism. Here we go. It's how and why did God create us?
Fix that. It says how,
why? You know what? Stop this. This guy you can
always improve.
So this is why I don't do these things with other people, is because it's people like you.
Andy?
Who, there is no Andy in here. Look, there was no mistake all along.
You can always improve. If you don't learn anything else today, you can always improve.
I've already lost it. I've already lost all things. I want to edit all. I probably won't. I'm just going to leave it. Here we go.
It's a good lesson to learn.
Here we go. Thank you, Andy. There is no Andy in here. All right. So how and why did God create us? So the answer that they want to, that I think is a great answer to read through, is this: that God created us male and female in his own image, to know him, to love him, to live with him, and glorify him. And it's right that we who were created by God should live to his glory. So that's a lot of things to say, but I think it's something that would be helpful to kind of process. So he created us male and female in his own image, to know him, love him, live with him, glorify him. It is right that we who were created by God should live to his glory. So immediately that just kind of comes to mind. Okay, let's talk about the why, and so we get that out of Genesis, and that's really that famous set of verses that are used, which is, so God created man in his own image. He created him in the image of God. He created them male and female. So really, a lot of what we're going to just talk about today kind of comes out of that whole idea of being made in the image of God. So before you chime in, because you have something interesting to add, just a couple of things to say about what this is all about, right? So he created us male and female, so both men and women bear the image of God. It's interesting that he had to create us, as male and female. It's emphasizing that we both share that. So, that helps. If you try to understand, is the Bible, just about men only? Does God, that's all there, right? That both men and women bear the image of God. But he created us to know him, to love him, to live with him, to glorify him. That's all actually in the first two chapters of what God wanted. And the rest of the story is, once they've been kicked out of the garden, it's to redeem them and to bring them back so that he might live amongst his people. It's how the book ends in Revelation, where God's amongst his people. So throw it out here. I want your insight really quickly into some of the things you were talking about, the importance of the image of God and what that means. Just to set it up before, in this book, I really like, it talks about, it's got some commentary. And one of the things that John Piper brings up is, you make an image of something because you want to show something about it. And so that when it says God has made us in his image, he wants to show something about who he is through us. And so that every human being has been made to exhibit and to demonstrate who God is. And that has all sorts of far-reaching implications. So I wanted you to chime in because you said that this actually connected to something in your own Bible study recently. And so tell me, kind of bring it up to speed, some of the things that you were thinking about the image of God and what that means.
Well, you're right. It's very widespread, almost to the point where you can't find any aspect of life that isn't touched by the fact that humans are created in the image of God. So, for example, a few weeks ago, in a Bible study that I participate in and sometimes help lead with some friends, we decided to go through the book of James. And it sort of fell on me to teach the first half of James chapter 2. Now, if you look at James chapter 2 and you read the first verse, it says, "My brothers, show no partiality as you hold the faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory." And it goes on to talk about examples of people that would show partiality, which when I started doing some research, I realized, well, what is partiality? Partiality is sort of discriminating, picking and choosing certain people that you favor or act more favorably towards than others. And so what's wrong with partiality? Well, it's unfair, right? It's unfair to other people. It's unfair to some people. It's unfair to those who care about people that are being unfairly treated, as well as the person who themselves is being unfairly treated. But there's something else to it, and it took me a while to dig down deep into what it was. Is it just that partiality is wrong towards people, or is there something higher that partiality is an offense to? And so it got me thinking back to the idea of the image of God, of being created in the image of God, the idea that sometimes people refer to as the imago Dei.
Look at you bringing out your language skills.
Oh, it's helpful, right? It's helpful to talk about things in different ways. So what it comes down to is this. Like we just talked about, God has stamped, if you've ever used a stamp, you take the thing, put it in ink, and then you stamp something with it. And there's this image that's created that is put there. And so God has stamped his indelible image on every single person, male and female, in creation. And he hasn't done this to anybody else or any other creature, I should say. So humans are the pinnacle of creation because we have that unique stamp of God's image upon us. And that gives us all, every single person that has ever existed and will ever exist, this inestimable value in the eyes of God. And so the implication, the downward implication of that to us is that partiality, ultimately, it's a sin against the image of God because we're favoring people that have God's indelible image stamped upon them more than others that also have the same indelible and inestimable value of image upon them too. So it's not just that partiality is a sin because it's unfair against other people. It's a sin because it's almost an attack or a lack of respect on God's very image by picking and choosing between those who bear it.
Yeah, I think that's another thing. I mean, you think about in Genesis when he has prohibitions against murder, and he tells Noah it's because he bears the image of God. There's something really special about what God has placed into each and every person. So let's talk about that for just a second then, okay? So each person has a sense of really extreme value before simply by being made in the image of God, and that's something that we should begin to look at each other like that. But there's purpose, and that's one of the things that we want to say in here is that so there's purpose in how we are to live our own lives. So not only how I should view you and how I should look at those who I may look down upon. There might be how I might feel, but the truth is, biblically speaking, I have no place to, because who am I to look down upon someone who bears God's image? Now, the piece that we see in here, though, goes on to say, okay, so he created us to know him, to love him, to live with him, to glorify him. And so really God made us so that we might exhibit who he is. And I think it's interesting in here, one of the things they did is they said, look over at right here into 2 Corinthians chapter 4. And notice what he says in verse 4 here. He says, in their case, the God of this age, talking about Satan, has blinded the minds of unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. And it's interesting for us to recognize that you really want to know what it means to image God well, to really fully live out all of what it should mean to look and exhibit that image. It's to look like Jesus. So the best thing we can do is A, accept what he did, believe in him, and then B, is to then begin to seek to look more like him and to be conformed to that image.
Yeah.
He says right here at the right up just a few verses before, he says, we all with unveiled faces are looking as in a mirror at the glory of the Lord, being transformed into the same image from glory to glory. This is from the Lord who is the Spirit. So there's that piece as well. So you know what it means to live really to the glory of God is to live like Jesus. But there's one other piece in here I thought was really interesting. And it's this, is not only is Jesus the full image of God that we should exhibit, that we should look like and want to. And when we place our faith in him and we begin to be transformed, we are looking more like the way God originally intended us to. There's another piece, they bring it up, I think it's interesting, in that God created us for each other. You think about this when he says, he creates them, and what does he say? It's not good for man to be alone. And so then he goes through the process of making Eve. And so we can't exhibit, he didn't call us to exhibit his image in private. That we are to do this in each generation. We are to exhibit his image amongst each other, to live out that image, experience that. And that's the hard part too. That's some of the stuff you're talking about too, is where the rubber meets the road too, is are we really able to see this and to live this out? Not only live out the way that God has intended us when it's difficult to, but also to make sure that I am not just claiming I bear his image in private, but I'm meant to show others and to point others to who Jesus is as well. So I think it was a really interesting point, is that we're meant to be in community together to do that.
Yeah, there's a corporate aspect of it as well that is supposed to be ideally present in all of our relationships, right? You mentioned the image-bearing aspect of reflecting Christ or bearing his image towards brothers and sisters in the church, right? Also, as a father to or a mother to your children, right? You want to bear that image of Christ to them. You want to give them that example, that godly Christ-like example for them to follow and hopefully aspire to. And then between a man and a wife in that context, it also is an image of Christ in the church, right? So you have this interrelationship, this interplay of this idea of the image of God that's supposed to settle on and affect, for God's glory, all of our human relationships.
What do you think this? I wonder how many people actually give thought to that they are to exhibit the image of God. I mean, how easy is it to go through our day, do work, sleep, entertainment, and not give much thought to bearing the image of God means I should live for him to exhibit that image. I mean, it's pretty easy, right? To not give any thought. And I think even in the church, to not even give any thought to it.
Yeah, it's easy to be on the cruise control all the time and to not give thought to the sheer value and importance of being made in the image of God.
And every piece of implication that comes with that. I think sometimes we maybe think about it in terms of value of each of others, and we forget the piece of my reflecting of the image that needs to be. Not only do I just value others, but I reflect it and live and pattern my life around, and not just say I do the Christian thing and then I live the rest of my life kind of for me. So
and ultimately what a great thing, what a great gift that we have life, right? God has given us life, but he's also given life to us, and he's given us on top of that his image to bear. It's a gift, it really is, and I don't think of it as such very often.
Well, hey man, I appreciate you coming in. We usually do these just a few minutes like this, and hey, we're proud of you doing all that you're doing. We're looking forward to being able to send you off. You know, we talk about everything here that we want to grow people in the gospel and go together in service of Christ, and looking forward to being able to send you out. And you know, maybe we'll be doing these remotely one day.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
So be praying for Matthew this week
Thanks, guys.
as he's doing some of the interview stuff.
Yeah.
All right, let me hit this off. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.